Okay, so as everyone is joining us this morning, first and foremost, I want to say good morning. Welcome to this WEO Wednesday webinar. My name is Kirsten Bayer with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be your moderator and technical support for this session. This WEO Wednesday webinar is titled Migrant Seasonal Farm Workers, Foreign Labor, and the Agricultural Recruitment System. We are joined by our presenter today, Miriam, and she will be discussing, we apologize for the late start this morning. We had some technical difficulties, and so she is calling in with us, and we're going to be kind of winging the presentation, so to say, because she's not even able to see the slide deck. So if you could bear with us this morning, we would appreciate it. And we're going to do the best we can with my team, me and her. So we appreciate your flexibility with us this morning. So again, my name is Kirsten Bayer, and I work for the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support. So if you yourself experience any technical difficulties like Miriam did this morning, feel free to reach out to me via chat or the Q&A, and I will help you to the best of my ability. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started this morning. This session is being recorded and will be up on our website and Illinois WorkNet's website within 48 hours. You can also access the slide deck from both of those websites as well within 48 hours if you want to download that in PDF form. And then you will also be receiving a survey, which I will put in the chat towards the end of the session as well. And it should pop up in your browser as soon as the session is over. But if you would like to take a couple minutes to take that follow-up survey, we would appreciate any feedback on this session, or if you have any topics you would like to hear about for future WEO Wednesday webinars, we would love to get that feedback on that survey. And then we will start off with our beginning WEO Wednesday webinar polls. And I will launch those now. So the first one is, where is your local area? And so I'm launching that poll now. Feel free to go ahead and answer that. As you're doing so, I also wanted to note that for accessibility reasons, we will have closed captioning on this session. It's not as accurate as we would love it to be, but we do have complete transcription accurately on the recording. So if you need that, but we do have the live transcription with us today. And if you feel you need it, you can turn on enable closed captioning or enable transcription on your Zoom menu, and it should pop up. So I'm going to go ahead and end that poll and share the results. So most of you are joining us from Central Illinois today. I am also joining you from Central Illinois. I'm in the office today. Our center is located in Bloomington Normal on Illinois State University's campus. Miriam, where are you joining us from today?
I am joining from Southern Illinois. I am located in the Mount Vernon office, regional office for IDES.
Nice. All right. And then the next poll is, which partner do you best represent? And so I'm going to give everyone about 30 seconds to answer this poll. Okay, so I'm going to end this poll and then share the results. Most of you are joining us from Title I or other state or local workforce innovation board partners. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time out of your workday to learn with us. So I'm going to introduce and hand it off to our presenter today, Miriam Rutland. And Miriam, you can take it away. We're on your title slide here.
Awesome. So good morning, everybody. So sorry if we have any technical hiccups. As Kirsten said, we were struggling a little bit this morning. So you might hear me throw out some cues for slides for Kirsten here and there. But hopefully we are able to have a good session today. Since I cannot see the screen in front of you, I do ask that if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat, and then I will be in communication with Kirsten, and any questions that come in, If you put a contact email or something there with your question, I can try and get all of those questions answered and sent out to whoever's asking them after the training is over. So I am the Employment Service Program Manager for Southern Region with the Illinois Department of Employment Security. However, I was the previous state monitor advocate for the state of Illinois, so you could say that migrant seasonal farm workers is definitely within my wheelhouse of knowledge. So hopefully I can impart some of that onto you today. You can reach me at miriam.rutland@illinois.gov. That will be the best way to reach me. I also have a office phone number and a state phone number there listed on that slide in case you want to try. But again, email is the best way. So let's go ahead and get started. Slide 6, Kirsten. Today we're going to be talking about migrant seasonal farm workers. We're also going to be talking about our foreign labor program and the ARS. And this is tweaked a little bit for our partners since I know that's who is on the call a lot today. So first off, we're going to go ahead and slip into topics. So we're going to be talking a little bit about terminology. We're going to be talking about the history a little bit. We're going to be talking about the State Monitor Advocate System, what that is, how that works, why it's in place. We're also going to be discussing the differences between migrant seasonal farm workers, or MSFWs, and then the foreign labor program itself, which is kind of divided into H2A and H2B, and then what the Agricultural Recruitment System is. So in order to do that, there's some terms that we need to know. So that will be slide 8. SMA is the State Monitor Advocate. The State Workforce Agency, or SWA, in this case, it refers to Employment Services in cooperation with the Department of Labor, so this would be IDES for the state of Illinois. We also have an NFJP partner. This is a National Farm Worker Jobs Program. So the way that this works is they are a federally mandated partner for IDES, for Illinois Department of Employment Security, when it comes to serving these populations, the migrant seasonal farm worker population. If you want to know who that partner is, if you want to reach out to them for Illinois, they are UMOS, so United Migrant Opportunity Services, and they are the NFJP partner for the state of Illinois. We're also going to be talking about ARS, or ARS, which is the Agricultural Recruitment System. Again, MSFWs is referring to migrant seasonal farm workers. Foreign labor program, you'll kind of hear foreign labor certification or foreign labor coordinator, FLC, so just keep that in mind. And then H2A and H2B, which we'll get into. So let's go ahead and move into the history of migrant seasonal farm workers and why that's important. So in 1971, there were almost 400 individuals who petitioned the U.S. Secretary of Labor with accusations that farm workers were being exploited by state employment offices across the United States. They had 12 primary concerns or complaints that they brought up. And so the Department of Labor went and they investigated these allegations. And so then in 1972, they attempted to correct what they had been doing wrong, right? What the complaints and the accusations against them came about. So, however, when they tried to fix this, the changes were voluntary. So it actually had very little impact on how services were delivered. So I want to get into some of the complaints just so you have an idea of what that is. So if you look at the complaints received, slide 10, Kirsten, you're going to have denial of the full range of employment services. There were substandard day haul placement services and facilities. We had job orders that were allowing employers to pre-designate MSFWs. We had people violating minimum wage laws. Referrals were being done to jobs where living and working conditions were just terrible, right? They were unlawful. When MSFWs, or migrant seasonal farm workers, were coming into offices, they were receiving separate applications. It was a complete separate office. They had separate menu of services, like the menus, the services themselves didn't add up. They had limited exposure to non-agricultural job referrals. There were civil rights violations, and then they just were not receiving any kind of support services in general. So, because of these complaints, you know, moving on to the next slide, Kirsten, um, a formal complaint was then made in October of 1972 because that first round didn't have as much of an impact, right? So in this actual suit, um, they claimed not just these discriminatory actions, but it was just inequitable treatment and services to migrant and seasonal farm workers. So in 1974, you had the Judge Ritchie court order. After all of these investigations were done, after all of this was, looked into, they were like, "Yep, you're right." So Judge Ritchie court order mandated that the Department of Labor come up with a system to ensure that migrant seasonal farm workers received services on a basis that was qualitatively equivalent and quantitatively proportionate to the services provided to non MSFWs. And that's just a fancy way of saying they need the same services. Okay, so this is where we have, next slide, Kirsten, the establishment of the State Monitor Advocate or SMA system. And please note that I'm calling this a system, it's not a program, right? So the State Monitor Advocate system in itself, again, it was established in response to the 1974 Judge Ritchie court order. The federal purpose of this system is to ensure compliance with applicable program regulations, administration requirements, um, just to see how we are able to meet the required outcomes. However, the monitor advocate system is kind of like an onion. It works on different levels. So we've got monitor advocates at the national level, at the regional level, and then at the state level to help ensure that services are being provided to the migrant seasonal farm workers. Again, qualitatively equivalent and quantitatively proportionate to the services that we are giving our other job seekers. In Illinois, it is administered by the Illinois Department of Employment Security. And then on slide 13, at the very bottom bullet point, you should be seeing a URL. So you can actually go to dol.gov and you can look up the information on the State Monitor Advocate system and go a little bit more in depth if that's something that you want to do on your own time after we've finished with this. So on slide 14, uh, the State Monitor Advocate system, some of what it does is it manages employment service and employment related law complaint system. So we have to have a system in place to make sure that any complaints that are coming in that we have a way of funneling those, of following up with those, of ensuring that there is something happening with these, right? That they're not just being thrown out the door, no one's actually doing anything with them, that we're actually being proactive about solving the issues of the complaints of these MSFWs when they come in through the door. The State Monitor Advocate also helps facilitate agricultural job orders in the clearance process, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this in the ARS section. There's also a component of review. So there's also ongoing review of service delivery and protections by the state agencies and by the local offices. So I don't know if any of you on the call have been involved in any monitoring reviews before, but the State Monitor Advocate will actually go to the one stop and they'll talk to IDES staff, but they'll also talk to the partners because part of what we are doing is we are ensuring, hey, that you know who these people are, that you know that they are covered, in Wagner Pizer. So these are people we should be helping, we should be providing services to. The State Monitor Advocate system or the State Monitor Advocate also helps to just serve as an advocate, right, to as a voice to improve services for migrant seasonal farm workers within Wagner Pizer. We serve as a liaison with our NFJP partners, so our National Farm Worker uh, Job Program partner, again, UMOS for the state of Illinois. And for other organizations out there, regardless of affiliation, as long as they're serving farm workers um, while we're implementing and sustaining outreach. We also help review, compile, and report statistical data to the Department of Labor, again, because this is an essential function of Wagner Pizer, right? We need to be providing these services to this group of people who are unfortunately overlooked many times because there's not a lot of knowledge of who they are or where they are. So sometimes they slip through the cracks, and so this is what we're trying um, to inform everyone on, right? So that we don't let that happen. So we're going to do two quick little check your knowledge polls, if you would, Kirsten, on slide 15. So check your knowledge, and Kirsten is going to put this up as a quick little poll for everybody. What is the year that the Judge Ritchie court order mandated a system to ensure that MSFWs receive services on a basis that is qualitatively equivalent and quantitatively proportionate to services provided to non-MSFWs? If you will throw that up, Kirsten, and let me know what the poll says.
Yes, thank you. So we'll give everyone a couple more seconds to answer this poll. Okay, so I'm going to end that poll and share the results. So the majority of people said 1974.
Awesome. You guys were listening. Great. So, yes, so we know it was a process, right? So it started in 1971. Then in 1972, they tried to do some stuff, but it didn't stick. So then they were like, okay, no, we really got to dig into this. And then finally in 1974 is when we saw that Judge Ritchie order come about that made everything mandatory. So let's do one more check your knowledge for this section. So, what is the name of the system established to ensure services to migrant seasonal farm workers?
Okay, so that poll is up, and we'll give everyone about 30 seconds to answer it.
I feel like I could do some Jeopardy music. Do 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 do
Yes.
do.
So in that poll and share the results. So most people said state monitor advocate.
Perfect. That's awesome. So, yeah, you are in the know. Great. All right. So, um, slide 17. We are going to transition a little bit into migrant seasonal farm workers, right? And so then slide 18, who are migrant seasonal farm workers? And there will be a quiz later, ladies and gents. So these are, there's a lot of words on here, but I just kind of need you to understand a couple of different things. So we have seasonal farm workers, we have migrant farm workers, and then we have migrant food processing workers. So let's look at seasonal farm workers first. So what constitutes a seasonal farm worker? You're looking at someone who in the last 12 months, so not the last calendar year or whatnot, the last 12 months, worked at least 25 or more days in farm work, who has earned at least half of their income from farm work, and who was not employed in farm work year round by the same employer. So, in the last year, at least 25 days, different employers, and at least half of their income was through farm work. Now, a migrant farm worker is going to be the same as a seasonal farm worker, but look at the actual name of the type of farm work, migrant, right? So, what does migrant mean? Migrant means that you are traveling, right? You cannot come home at the end of the day. So, you very easily could have a migrant worker who is from Texas. They live in Texas and then they come up to Illinois, then they end up in Missouri or they go to Indiana for watermelons, and then they come back to Illinois, do pumpkins, right? They're going all over the place. They can't get back to Texas every night to go back home and go to sleep. So that's a migrant farm worker. A migrant food processing worker, you're going to be thinking of the same thing. So you're still thinking, oh, they're doing seasonal, all the income stuff applies, but now this time they are actually processing food. So you're looking at someone um, a lot more in the with pigs or poultry, things of that nature, right? You're just doing the processing of food, of a food material. Um, okay, so let's talk about farm work. So we talked about who the farm workers are, but what exactly constitutes farm work? So slide 19, we're looking at, I guess around here, especially we think of farm work as the fields, right? Because we've got cornfields and soybean fields all around us. So it's actually not just cultivation and tilling of soil, it's dairy production, it's growing, it's harvesting of any kind of agricultural and horticultural commodity. You are looking and including livestock in this, poultry, fur bearing animals, bees, farming of fish, any kind of forestry or lumbering operation that actually falls into that farm work definition. Um, Also, anything that you're doing in preparation for market. So, a lot of times, like if you go out, for example, in an orchard, you'll see the people out picking the fruit, like that's considered farm work. But then the people that are standing there in front of those sifters and they're like packing things into the big pallets to send off to the market, that's also considered farm work. Okay, so that's why that point is there: handling, planting, drying, packing, packaging, processing, freezing, all that stuff is considered farm work. So we talked about migrant seasonal farm workers. We have an idea of what constitutes farm work itself. So let's talk a little bit about service delivery, right? How does that look like for migrant seasonal farm workers? So if we jump to slide 21, you're going to get tired of hearing this. But again, migrant seasonal farm workers have to receive qualitatively equivalent and quantitatively proportionate services. That's the whole reason this Judge Ritchie court order came about, right? Because we know for a fact they were not. So IDES and partners have to be able to determine whether our participant is a migrant seasonal farm worker, right? And we have to be able to provide a list of available career and supportive services in their native language when it is requested. Now, for Illinois, most of our migrant seasonal farm workers speak Spanish. So, my advice to you would be that if in your office or offices you have a list of services available in English, that maybe you look into having a list of those same services in Spanish so that if you run across one of these migrant seasonal farm workers, that you are able to provide that to them in Spanish. Now, once a participant is determined that, or you've determined that a participant is an MSFW, we have to make sure that we are referring them and that we're registering them for full range of career and supportive services. So includes job and training referrals. Job order information must also be readily available. So if you're a partner who has job postings, right? Like we have to make sure that we are making those readily available and easily available for our migrant seasonal Farm Workers. For example, a lot of our IDES offices will have resource rooms and will have job boards, and some of them will have a Spanish only section, or they'll have Spanish on a little sign, and then everything under it will be in English and Spanish. They'll have different resources available, just kind of there and readily available and seen. So next slide. Um, in particular to IDES, we have to make sure that because we are the SWA, we are the state workforce agency, we have to make sure that we have an adequate number of outreach workers that are conducting outreach to migrant seasonal farm workers in these service areas. And we have to make sure that we're working with our NFJP partner, but again, all our other partners that we could bring on board that provide services that could also provide services to the migrant seasonal farm workers. So I put it in bold, and I just want to say it's so important, right? It's vitally important that our partners maintain a relationship with IDES, because we need each other in order to be able to serve this population like it needs to be served. And then service delivery itself is measured through a couple of different things by Department of Labor. So I just kind of jotted these down so that you have an idea of what Department of Labor is looking for. So we have to meet equity indicators, which include referring our MSFWs to a job, receiving job development, and then making sure that they're getting referrals to supportive or career services. And then we also have to make sure that we meet minimum levels of service, which are, again, placing individuals in a job, putting them in long-term jobs that are non-agricultural in nature, because again, there was a history of them not even getting those type of referrals. We have to make sure that we are reviewing our significant offices, which we're going to talk about here in just 1 second. We also have to make sure that we're conducting field checks and that we're doing outreach, a certain number of outreach, and we're making sure that we're processing those complaints. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the migrant seasonal farm worker, the significant states and significant local offices. So if you are located in an area around, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk to you about that here in a second. So let's talk about what a significant state is. So the Department of Labor looks at all of the numbers that come in, and they go, oh, this state has a high number of migrant seasonal farm workers, and that use services with Wagner Pizer or are receiving services under Wagner Pizer. So the Employment and Training Administration says, okay, these top 20 states have the highest number of MSFWs based on all of the data that we received from our local offices and from the state. So these are going to be significant states. Illinois, just FYI, Illinois is not currently considered a significant state, though it has been in the past. And there are reasons for that. But another point that I will make is that Illinois could very well be considered a significant state again in the future. We just have to make sure that we are reaching those folks and that we are giving them services. And when we find them and we start giving them services, those numbers are going to go up, which I could very well see us becoming a significant state again. Significant local offices are again designated annually by Employment and Training Administration of DOL. And so this is where our migrant seasonal farm workers account for more than 10% of all of our annual applicants, or like the clients that we get in and we get registered. Those local offices are also usually located in an area that has a large number of MSFWs around them. So even if maybe 10% of the people that are coming in are not registered as MSFW, DOL can look and say, well, you have a really, really high population around you. There's the potential of them being there. So we're going to go ahead and designate you as a significant local office, even if they are not currently coming into the office. So that means that our outreach staff have to get out there, right, and bring them in or get more registrations done. We also have a significant bilingual local office. So again, these are all designated by ETA, and those are significant offices where 10% or more of the MSFW applicants need some kind of service provision in Spanish or whatever other dominant language is in that state. So, like I said, for us, it is Spanish. So, you could be a significant state and have a bunch of significant local offices, or you could not be a significant state and still have significant local offices or significant bilingual local offices. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to transition a little bit to the IDES outreach staff because I want partners to know who these people are and where they're located. So if they are near you and near your offices, you can reach out if you have any questions. So slide 25, Kirsten, migrant and seasonal farm worker outreach staff. So right now, the program manager is Cynthia E. Jones. She is out of Chicago. I was the previous state monitor advocate. It is currently vacant until they find a replacement. In northern Illinois, she's up in Chicago. You have Rosa Flores. In North Aurora, you have Apolonio Garcia. In Northwest Illinois, we have a vacancy. So, eventually we would love to get that filled. In Central Illinois, we have Edgar Revuelta out of the Champaign office, IDES Champaign office. And then in Southern Illinois, out of our Belleville office, we have Fatima Gonzalez. And so I also put the team contact email down there, and I would encourage every one of you to write that down. If you have any issues, if you have questions regarding MSFWs, if you want to get in touch with any of those folks, that is a communal inbox where everyone who is part of that program and does outreach and is involved with MSFWs, they will check that email continuously. So you can send an email to that email. You can send a message to that email, and someone from the team, regardless of who is, if there is turnover or not, or who is part of it, someone will get back to you. So that is des.ilswa@illinois.gov. So des.ilswa@illinois.gov. And just to give you an idea of what this group of people do right on a regular basis, slide 26, Kirsten. So they go out, they locate, and they contact MSFWs that are not being reached by normal intake activities. So a lot of our offices are like, well, we've never seen them in here. Well, they're still there. It's because if you don't see them, it's because our outreach staff are out talking to them. So they need to go out, they provide basic services, they promote job opportunities, but they're actually going out in the field. So that might be I'm out there at 6 o'clock in the morning, meeting a group of folks who are getting off a bus, getting ready to go into a cornfield and detassel corn. We're going out to the apartment complexes where they're currently living, or the hotels where they're currently at, or we're going out to like a state fair or a county fair, right? They're gathering for recreational purposes, or they're coming in and we have um, a migrant like arrival event where we set up and we give them information as they first come to the state. So we are doing outreach, is just a little bit different. They're also informing MSFWs of just all of the services available, right? So career counseling, job search, referrals, placement, resume prep, workshops, job training, assessments. Here's all of our partners. Here's everything that they have that they can give you. Here, here, here. Like that's part of the job, right? And then last but not least, they're encouraging the migrant seasonal farm workers to come into the one-stop centers to receive more services and to get further help. And I want to just kind of state, one of the reasons that this doesn't usually happen is because if you think of migrants, they're here, they have kind of wonky hours, right? They might be out there super early, and they're only here for X amount of time. So it's hard for them to come in and set up appointment for follow up maybe 2 weeks later or a week later because they're not home, they don't have access to a computer, or their transportation is limited because they're traveling in a group. So that's why it's really important for us to have outreach staff, but it's also so important for that staff to have a relationship with our partners so that when we do have something that we can't provide and our partners are just so good at it, we want to be able to say, hey, here's this person who could really use your help, and just have that established. So let's do another quick check your knowledge. So slide 27, Kirsten. So for everyone who's on the call, which things are considered farm work? Tilling soil, growing and harvesting of crops, raising cattle, forestry and lumber operations, packing crops for market, or all of the above?
Okay, so we'll give everyone about 30 seconds to answer this poll. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Most people said all of the above.
Awesome. Yay, you guys are making me so proud. All right, so slide 28. Let's do one more. This one I'm not going to read out loud because there is a lot more writing. And I did try to be sneaky with it. So good luck. What constitutes a seasonal farm worker?
We're going to give everyone about like 45 seconds to a minute
Yeah,
because this is a little bit more reading, and
yeah.
then I'll share the results. Give everyone a couple more seconds here. We have Lucas who put in the chat, tricky, dot, dot, dot.
Yeah, it is tricky. I did it on purpose. Wanted to see if you're listening.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So most people chose, I believe, option D, a person who worked at least 25 days in the last 12 months in farm work and earned at least half of their income while working for different employers.
And that is correct. So thank you guys. Yes, D is correct. 25 days in the last 12 months, got at least half of their income, and they worked for different agriculture employers. Perfect. So we're going to do one last one. We talked about seasonal farm worker. So now, what constitutes a migrant seasonal farm worker?
So we'll give everyone a couple more or 30 more seconds, I apologize, to answer this one. Okay, so in the poll and share the results, most people chose option A, a seasonal farm worker who must travel to do farm work, 94%. Oh, oops, to do farm work so that he or she is unable to return to his or her permanent residence within the same day.
Perfect. I love you guys. Great. Thank you so much. So that is actually the end of the MSFW section. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And then, Kirsten, if you will just give everybody a few seconds to maybe type. And then if there's any that pop out at you, Kirsten, if you would just let me know and I can try to address those here. And if I don't get to a question, again, just feel free to put them in the chat, and then I will do my best to answer everything and then try and get that information out to you once we are done. But this is the first section of the presentation completed. Is there anything coming in there, Kirsten?
There isn't, no, but
Okay.
we can go ahead and move on, and then
Yep.
everyone just feel free to post any questions or comments in the chat, and then we'll just address them kind of as they come in. I can interject or we can address them at the end.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to move away from migrant seasonal farm workers, and then we're going to start talking a little bit about foreign labor and H2A and H2B, because a lot of times people get confused, and is it the same thing? Is it a program? What exactly is happening? So now we're going to kind of swap gears, and we're going to start talking about foreign labor. So slide 32, Kirsten. We have H2A temporary agricultural labor. So exactly what does all that mean? It has a hyphen in it. It's code. I don't understand. It's really not that hard. So an H2A worker, it's the H2A guest worker program, right? Lets agricultural employers hire workers from other countries that come here on a temporary work permit for agricultural jobs. This is for jobs that last 10 months or less. So in order to even do that, though, employers have to show that they've tried and they are unable to find people who are willing, able, and qualified here in the States, and just available to perform that temporary and seasonal agricultural work. They also have to show that the employment of these H2A workers is not going to adversely affect the wages and the working conditions of workers who are already in the US who are doing something similar. So, a little bit more in depth on the H2A, slide 33. Again, the employers have to try and fill those jobs with domestic workers first. They have super strict regulations when they bring the foreign workers into the states. You've got the Department of Labor working with the SWA, with the State Workforce Agency, which is again IDES, trying to make sure that everything is good and all regulations are being followed, and to approve employer applications, just to bring workers in. And so once you even have all that going, the state workforce agency then has to do all sorts of follow up. So they're actually conducting housing inspections for the workers, or on behalf of the workers, to make sure that the living conditions are decent, right? That they're actually livable. They're going out and they're doing field visits and field checks. So just to give you an idea, there is a misconception that I want to address, because I am Latina and I've heard this, and I've heard this about these workers before, and people might say, "Oh, these people from these other countries, or these Mexicans, and they're coming in and they're taking all these American jobs." Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm just gonna stop you right there. These are jobs, again, that we have employers here who are trying to fill. They have to jump through hoops, ladies and gents. And quite frankly, the American workers do not want these jobs. So this is what our employers, our US employers, are having to resort to because they can't find local help. So just to give you an idea of some of the hoops that the employers have to go through to bring some of these workers, trust me, they'd rather not go through these hoops. They have to provide copies of work contracts to each worker. They have to make sure that they know all the deductions that are coming in. They have to provide free housing, okay? Free housing to anyone who's not able to go home the same day. Well, if they're from a different country, guess what? They can't go home every day. So they have to provide free housing. They have to give them free cooking facilities, or they have to provide them 3 meals a day. They have to refund transportation costs. They have to give workman's comp insurance. They have to provide tools and supplies. They have to offer a 3-quarter work guarantee. So if your contract says you're going to work 100 hours, you have to offer 3-quarter work guarantee. You're going to get paid for 75 of those hours. So, I mean, if you think about it, agricultural, you might have rainy days, you might get your season started late, you might have to end early. There could be a million things that happen, right? But they still have to fulfill that contract. They have to give them earning statements, and then they even have to have surety bonds. Um, on top of all this, once the employer gets the persons here, then we've got the state workforce agency again, doing those field visits and doing those field checks. So visits, I'm sorry. You've got the outreach staff coming out. They have to provide employment services and ES related program information. They have to be documented. Records have to be kept. They're at working or at living sites. Um, Field checks, they'll go out unannounced, right? And they're random, and the employer doesn't know you're coming. And the staff are checking to make sure that you're upholding your contract and that everything that you said you were going to provide, you're providing. If there's any kind of hiccup, the workers can then give the complaints to the SWA agency regarding that employer. So I just want to make sure that partners know, right? Like everyone knows that this is a last resort. This isn't like we're just hopping straight to this. And there is a lot involved with these workers. So H2A is agriculture and it's foreign labor. Okay. So I'm going to get off my high horse, off beating my horse. And let's move to H2B really quick. So H2B is very similar to H2A, except that now it is a non-agricultural job. So H2A, A for agriculture, H2B is non-agriculture. That's how how I first learned it, right? H2A for agriculture. So it's still a program where they've got permits. It's still a seasonal or a one-time or peak load or intermittent basis. It's not a year-round thing. And so then you're looking at hospitality workers, ticket sales, theme parks. Around here in Illinois, we've had for like the state fair, a lot of those workers for the state fair will have traveling bands of them, and they'll come in on an H-2B visa because we can't get the local folks to take that on. So slide 35, the employers have to, again, just like with the H-2A, they have to try and fill the jobs with the domestic workers first. They've got another set of strict regulations when they bring those workers over. And then the Department of Labor is kind of um, the main agency. So whereas H2A is a combination of Department of Labor and the state workforce agency, H2B is much more heavily reliant on Department of Labor for employer application approval. So not too terribly in depth with these two. So slide 36, we're just going to kind of go over these together. What type of worker primarily works with planting and harvesting of crops? That's going to be your H2A foreign labor worker. What type of worker primarily works with landscaping? That's going to be an H2B worker because it's not quite agriculture. What type of worker primarily works with motels and hotels? So we did talk about hospitality. That's an H2B foreign labor worker. And then what type of worker primarily works with packing and transporting produce? So that would be H2A because we did talk about farm work, including packing, handling, preparing produce or what have you to go to market. So that's why that would be an H2A foreign labor worker. So that is the end of foreign labor. It's very short, very sweet, Trust me, I could have gone more in depth. So if you have any questions on H2A or H2B, please feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat. And I'll kind of give everyone a second to do that. And that will be the end of the second section. So then the third section, we're going to go ahead and talk about the agricultural recruitment system. So that would be slide 38, Kirsten.
Okay. Miriam, we did have one question. So,
Yes,
are the farm workers informed about services provided by the employers?
by the employers.
Yes. Are the farm workers
So,
informed about the services provided by employers?
okay, so part of the SWA's responsibilities when they go out and they do field check and field visits, the people, the outreach staff that are going out, they will go over like what the employer, like they'll have a copy of the contract, and they'll go over it and they'll go, are you receiving this? Like how much are you receiving per hour? And they check. They'll say, are you getting your pay stubs? They'll kind of go through that laundry list of questions just to kind of make sure that everything that the employer is supposed to be providing, that they are actually providing and the workers are receiving. I hope that answered the question.
We'll give them a second to see if that answered the question, but I am on slide 38 now.
Awesome. So the Agricultural Recruitment System, or ARS, for the state of Illinois is actually Illinois JobLink, and it is administered by the Illinois Department of Employment Security. So let's go a little bit into the background of this system. So slide 39. Wagner-Pfizer Act mandated that the U.S. Employment Service maintain a system for orderly movement of workers within and between states. Both agricultural employers and farm labor contractors can use the agricultural recruitment system to seek workers, and no employment service office or state workforce agency can place a job order seeking workers to perform farm work into intrastate or interstate clearance unless the ES office and employer have attempted and not been able to obtain sufficient workers within the local labor market area, or the ES office anticipates a shortage of local workers. So I'm going to break all this down. It's a lot of text. Um, but so point number 3, I just want to just point that this means that we should be marketing Illinois JobLink to our ag employers and making more referrals of domestic workers at the local level to these job orders before they ever go to like statewide or even out of state recruitment. Because the foreign workers, again, should be a last resort. And so you'll see now I'm going to start referring to MSFWs and foreign labor because it all ties in with the agricultural recruitment system. So slide 40, partners and referrals. So it's important, right, that we identify those migrant seasonal farm workers, not just at IDES, but through our partners, because we want to make sure that we are referring them to the agricultural recruitment system for job referrals. And this isn't one of those like, oh, I need numbers, give me, give me your people. Like, no, it's just a kind of like a Department of Labor thing. Like, this is the system that is designated by DOL, and this is just our way of making sure that the system is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing and that we're recruiting locally before we look outside. So again, partners, I'm sorry, partners, if you could just make effort, make every effort to make sure that any client that you think falls into this MSFW, if you could just refer them to IDES, make sure there's someone there, some of that IDES outreach staff even who can work with them and get them in IJL and make sure that they're getting job referrals, not just to the ag jobs, but just jobs in general in the system. I would appreciate it. IDES would appreciate it. The folks there, I'm sure, would, because this then again lowers the need for those H2A foreign labor workers. And anytime we refer those local workers to something that's non ag, right, we are then lowering the need for H2B foreign labor workers. So let's take a look at this little flow chart that I've got on here. Um, and I tried to to make this as easy as possible to kind of follow. So we've got our businessman over here with his arms crossed. He's like, "Oh, I need workers. I need help." So what do? We go in and we place the job order locally, right? So we put it in Illinois Job Link, which is the Agricultural Recruitment System, and then we recruit locally. So if it's, for example, I'm in Mount Vernon, so we put it in the Mount Vernon office. We recruit in Mount Vernon in the local area, but we can't find enough people. So you can see the little sad face. We can't find enough workers. So what do we do then? So then what we do is we talk to the employer and we can go, hey, we do have an option to get this to go to different offices. So that's called or I'm sorry, intrastate clearance. So it's within the state, but it's throughout the state, right? So then they're like, yeah, let's do that. So DOL is like, sure, let's make it. You don't have enough people locally. So then you look at recruitment on a state level. And then you try and try and try. And then if you can't get enough workers at the state level, then we send it back to DOL for review. And we go, hey, we still can't find enough folks. Can we start looking at outside of the state? So then DOL will go and they'll look at your stuff and they'll say, okay, we're going to review it and we're going to approve it. And so then they turn around and they say, okay, we're going to determine the areas of supply. So they're going to give you a certain list of states, supply states, and they're going to say, we're going to send your stuff out not only in Illinois, but these supply states where traditionally we've seen, you know, the workers come from these states to Illinois to work. So then you recruit within all of these supply states and Illinois. And you recruit and you still can't find enough workers. So then it goes back to DOL. And then at that point, you're talking to your employer, and the employer is seeking his or her alternative options. So at that point is when you're looking at bringing in H2A or H2B workers. And again, that's a whole can of worms. That's very in depth. I kind of gave you the tip of the iceberg, so to speak. But just so you know, this is how the whole system is supposed to work, right? We do local, then we go throughout the state, then we go intra or interstate, so we have supply states, and then if we still can't get enough workers, then we're resorting to the H2A and the H2B workers. So I hope that this has served as a good kind of overview as to how this system is supposed to work, the intent of the system, and just a little information on these other populations that we're supposed to be serving through Wagner Pizer, which are our migrant seasonal farm workers. So that is actually the end of my session, the end of the training. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to put them in chat. And on the very last slide, I went ahead and I put the SWA email address in there as well. So again, des.ilswat@illinois.gov. If you have any questions regarding to migrant seasonal farm workers or the foreign labor program, you can email that inbox directly, and everybody there who is involved with the program should be able to help you. If you've got any questions related strictly to this presentation, or if you want to tell me I did horrible or I did good or what, whatever, you can also reach out directly to me at miriam.rutland@illinois.gov. So I hope this has been worth your time. Thank you so much for joining me this morning in spite of our technical difficulties. So Kirsten, I will hand it back over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miriam. We don't have any questions in the chat so far, but we'll give everyone just a second to put any in there if they have them. I also wanted to reiterate that this session was recorded and the PowerPoint slides and recording from today will be up on our website as well as Illinois WorkNet. So you can find those there within 48 hours. You'll also receive a follow-up email tomorrow stating that those websites and where you can find the recordings and everything, as well as a follow-up survey. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that follow-up survey in the chat right now as well, if you'd like to go ahead and just take it right away so you can be timely with your feedback. And we're getting a lot of thank yous to you, Miriam. So um,
Yay!
thank yous and great presentations, great sessions, very informative and fun and interactive. So we
Yay!
appreciate
Thank
your
you guys so
we
much.
appreciate your time as the presenter today, and I appreciate your time, attendees. And it looks like Kelly Robert Bart raised their hand. Kelly, did you want me to unmute you? I can unmute you here if you have a question. I'm not sure what happened. They might have just been able trying to log off or something. But we will go ahead and close this session. Thank you everyone for your time, and feel free to reach out to Miriam if you have any follow-up questions, and everyone have a great rest of your Wednesday.